officers around some of these formations to see what was going on.
Yeah, well, see, they all appear overnight. They're not there when the farmer goes to bed in the evening. They're there the next morning. There is talk that the BBC has videotape of one of them being formed in a matter of seconds. Last I heard, they were still having the tape analyzed to make sure it's legitimate. If this is the case, it's very exciting. But even if it isn't true, there is enough here to describe a first-rate mystery. No one has a worthwhile explanation. They've been tossing around some crazy theories that don't come close to explaining what's happening. But I have yet to hear a theory that makes any sense, that holds any water.
And I understand that in some of the studies about these formations, absolutely no trace of footprints or anything man-made have been around the circles.
Yeah, well, now, there have been a few obvious hoaxes, which you would expect, because they've gotten a lot of attention. The great majority, and I say there's between 500 and 1,000 in England, the great majority fit your description. No sign of anything or anybody going in or coming out until the investigators get there and trample down some of the crops by accident. And so, besides, with this many of them, and especially with these big, complex formations, you're talking of tens of thousands of man-hours of work if they're all hoaxes.
Yeah,
and what's the point?
And if it were going to be tens of thousands of hours of labor, it couldn't happen overnight.
No. And also, there'd have to be some kind of payoff. You can get a few people together to do one for a lark, I suppose, but not hundreds of them. People would get bored very quickly and find another hobby. And so I see no evidence that any but a few obvious ones are hoaxes. And there doesn't seem to be any natural explanation because they're too precise, they're too geometrically laid out to be the result of natural forces. Things just don't happen that way.
It almost seems like if indeed these were caused by extraterrestrials, that they kind of don't want to cover up what they've done.
Well, they're sure being obvious about it, whoever's doing it. They're just out there for everybody to see.
And, of course, there's all kinds of other hard evidence, or at least documentation, that the government has been knowing about UFOs for years. In fact, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that your organization has retrieved through the Freedom of Information Act. We're going to really take a serious look at what might have happened in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico. People have said that the United States retrieved a UFO and even retrieved an alien. And we're going to talk about what you have retrieved from the government, and also more interesting theories about unidentified flying objects. We're going to take a short break for the news. I noticed the lines are already starting to pack up. People knew the program was going to be on tonight, and they were waiting for it. So if you want a line, I really advise you to get it right away, because they're all going to be gone here in about 5-10 minutes. Number in Atlanta is 872-0750. Anywhere else, 1-800-WSB-TALK. Don't forget, it's conservative radio for Atlanta, West Minder, and that's Monday through Fridays, 1 to 4, right here on AM-750 WSB.
Atlanta, WSB, Atlanta, AM-750.
The exclusive 5-day forecast from Atlanta's only full-time radio meteorologist. Here on AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
WSB, Atlanta.
AM-750 WSB news time at the tone, 10 o'clock.
WSB News Center. The temperature at 10 o'clock, 51 degrees. Tonight's weather, a few showers likely to remain with a low of 49. Crisis in the Gulf. Update. This just in, Cuba has rejected a U.S. appeal for support of a UN resolution that would authorize the use of force to drive Iraq out of Kuwait. Debate on that resolution is set for tomorrow. The White House says President Bush has not decided whether to call a special session of Congress to consider the Persian Gulf crisis, but Senate Minority Leader Bob Dole says odds are better than 50-50 that there will be a special session next month. While the administration works for approval for use of force, former military chiefs are urging a wait-and-see approach. Retired Admiral William Crowe says war is not tidy. In fact, he says it's a mess. He says patience is the way to go in dealing with the Gulf crisis. Another former chair of the Joint Chiefs echoes the sentiment. David Jones says he's afraid the deployment of troops in the Gulf may lead to premature and perhaps unnecessary fighting. Keep tuned to AM-750 WSB for the latest news from the Middle East at the top of every hour. And we'll break in with updates. Weather with WSB meteorologist Kirk Mellish.
Well, after being almost 30 degrees above normal for this time of year, our temperatures are going to be below average for the next several days. The WSB exclusive 5-day forecast, starting with tonight, breezy and noticeably cooler with a lingering shower possible, low around 47. Then for tomorrow, a chance for a morning shower, windy and much colder, high only around 55, lows tomorrow night 33 to 38. And the extended outlook Friday through Sunday, cool sunshine all 3 days, highs Friday 55, lows 34 to 38, highs Sunday in the low 60s. I'm meteorologist Kirk Mellish in the AM-750 WSB Weather Center.
Currently, WSB color radar shows some light showers in North Georgia, Lumpkin, Habersham County areas, some heavier rain south of Augusta. Relative humidity is 90%. Winds are out of the northwest at 7, and the barometric pressure is 30.23 and falling. And at 10:06, the temperature on Peachtree Street is 51 degrees. More of Sound Off with AM-750 WSB's Paul Gonzales is next. I'm Bob Glasscoff, and if news breaks out, we'll break in. This is Atlanta's news, weather, and traffic station, AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
AM-750 WSB, the 50,000-watt Clear Channel Voice of the South, presents Sound Off with Paul Gonzales. To be a part of our show, call 872-0750. That's 872-0750. Now, here's Paul Gonzales.
And my guest is Don Berliner of the Fund for UFO Research. This organization's been around since 1979, and they have provided a lot of money for scientific research, awarded more than 20 grants to support research into case investigations, historical documentation, photographic analysis of UFOs. And it's a serious organization and not a bunch of nuts. On the board of directors, there are people who are in the fields of astronomy and astrophysics and geology, disciplines of that nature. And our next call is going to be from Jessica on a car phone. And Jessica, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hi.
How are you, Jessica?
Just fine. I wanted to ask your guest, Mr. Berlinger, I had read or heard something about these circles, and they said something about the fibers of the wheat are not damaged. Is there any evidence of any, structural damage, breakage, or any, how's that occur without there being any, damage? Because I've seen these, pictures, and I just can't comprehend.
Well, you're not alone. The stalks of grain, whether it's wheat or barley or rye or whatever, are bent over close to the ground, not broken. They lay along the ground and continue to grow.
If they try to reconstruct this as far as man-made, it does always result in breakage? Or?
They have simulated this using people with various devices to make nice, neat circles, that sort of thing. And of course, as soon as people get out there and start tromping around, they break the grain. I have no idea how it's being done, but it's consistently that way. And also, there has been analysis of grain inside the circle and outside the circle, and there are internal changes. I don't know enough about botany or whatever the appropriate science is to explain it or even describe it, but analysis has been done, and they have found structural changes inside the stalks of grain.
I wonder if they found any traces of radiation.
Not to my knowledge. This was one of the first things that was checked. It's fairly easy to do. And I don't know of any cases like that.
Hey, good question, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dorothy in Cumming, Georgia. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Okay, Paul, don't cut me off after this question because I have a question for your guest. First, on October 31st this year, I drove home from work listening to the young woman who was just hysterical.
Oh, I was telling my guest about that, and let me, and I'm not going to cut you off, let me tell the rest of the audience. It was Halloween night, and of course, people get a little strange on Halloween night. A woman called me from her car phone in the mountains of Georgia, and she sounded very believable. Her voice was shaking. She was very upset. She said that she had been followed by a UFO. She even gave me her phone number so that I would know she wasn't a crackpot. So for those who didn't hear that night, that's what Dorothy's talking about. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Okay, that she had two babies in the car.
Right.
And she finally turned into a yard. She was on a dirt road near Baldwin, Georgia.
That's right.
I've worried tremendously about the young woman, wishing she would call back. I've listened many nights coming home from work. I've never heard her since.
Well, she, from what I understand, is okay, and what we finally figured out was probably the answer to that is that particular night, in fact, it's still very close to the Earth. Mars was extremely close and extremely bright, and also a star was extremely bright that night, and we had people from all over, not only Georgia, but all over the country who said they saw this light that seemed like it was right there, just a few miles away from them, as if it were a UFO. But what the lady saw was more than likely either the planet Mars or a very brilliant star.
Okay, I believe that, possibly.
So the lady, I'm sure, is all right.
I know. Okay, now my next comment is to your guest. I saw a flying saucer, a UFO, on the desert. I was stationed at Las Vegas Air Force Base before it became Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. We watched it all afternoon, and it was a silver-shaped dome that scooted very rapidly. The guys ran down to the flight line. They were not allowed to take off. We were told later it was Venus. That was a joke, because Venus never moves like that. Now, let's go to the circles, okay?
So wait, can I back up just a second? When was this that you saw this?
This was 1948.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
Yeah, because in 1947, there was the famous supposed crash of a UFO in New Mexico. Anyway, your next question, then I got to run, Dorothy.
Okay, I know. The other thing is, in 1978, in Athens, Georgia, having moved from the West Coast back to Georgia, I ran out in December on a cold night to retrieve some things that I had put outside, and a very strange glow. I won't say I saw anything, because I didn't. It was just a glow. And my hair stood straight up on my head. I was barefoot in the cold gray, so I was very much awake, and I retrieved those things, felt the horror of it, ran back in my house, locked my doors. The next day, I went outside, and there were about 8-foot diameter 2 circles in my grass. I've never told anybody about that. I was totally myself. I was not out of myself, and I've wondered all these years, and it took months and months after that for the grass to grow back. What could that possibly have been?
I would have to know more about it. It would take, some investigating. We heard other reports very similar that are very hard to explain.
Thank you for your call and also your concern about that caller on October the 31st. Next one is Steve in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And Steve, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, I'd like to know if your guest has ever heard of a futurist. I believe it's a futurist. His name is Benjamin someone. I forgot his last name. But he theorizes that in December of this year, there's going to be some type of financial collapse of the monetary system in our whole world. And aliens are supposed to return back to this planet. And I saw this on National Public Television, so this is not a joke or anything.
So they got to bring money with them?
No. This Benjamin Ware, maybe? Or I don't know if it's last name.
No, it's not familiar to me. And I have no idea what the basis is for his prediction.
Yeah, that sounds a little weird.
I wouldn't worry about it. You know, don't pull all your money out of the bank.
No. Next call is Bob in Lake Arrowhead. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Hello there.
How are you, Bob?
Very good. See, I've been studying UFOs now for almost 50 years. I must have 60 or 70 books on the subject. And of course, like most people, I vacillate between belief and disbelief. However, there's a book that came out about a year and a half ago called Light Years, about a Billy Myers of Switzerland.
Yeah, I understand that was a hoax. Wasn't that a hoax, Don?
Well, part of it is a proven hoax. There are several photos in there purporting to be of a future great earthquake.
Yeah.
And they turn out to be photos of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake.
Yeah.
And so once somebody has pulled a stunt like that, it's pretty hard to have much confidence in them.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, as I recall, they found some models in that guy's house of some of the so-called UFO pictures that he had.
Yeah, there are a number of questionable angles to it, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe that, Bob. And if you'd like to join us, the number in Atlanta is 872-0750. Outside of the area, 1-800-WSB. Talk anything you ever wanted to know about UFOs, but we're afraid to ask. And many of you, like that last caller, have read UFO books, and you wonder if that they're credible or not. Many of the books and many of the reports turned out to be just pure hoaxes. Our guest in his organization is after the facts, and they know about the hoaxes. If you have a question, you have a comment, the number is 872-0750 in Atlanta. Outside of the area, 1-800-WSB-TALK. If you get a busy signal, keep trying. There are a lot of people interested in this subject, and if you'll be patient, we'll get to your call. Reserve your line, though. There's only one line left in Atlanta. That's 872-0750. Question or comment, you want to learn more about UFOs, go to your phone, call us now.
Here's what's happening this week on AM-750 WSB. Join us for the Festival of Trees coming December 1st through the 9th. This year, we'll be at the Georgia World Congress Center, and it's bigger and better than ever. All proceeds benefit Eggleston Children's Hospital. It's a perfect way to get into the holiday spirit. Keep listening for more details. I'm Wes Minner. Hope to see you there.
Listen to Atlanta's Morning Show and the Gary McKee Hometown Radio Show for your chance to win tickets to see the Kuppenheimer Classic Basketball doubleheader, featuring Georgia against Texas and Georgia Tech against Loyola Marymount, benefiting Scottish Rite Children's Medical Center December the 22nd at the Omni. And you'll also be eligible to win a trip for two to the NCAA Final Four in Indianapolis, including airfare from Delta Airlines, accommodations, and game tickets. But you gotta listen to win. I'm Bobby Harper, and that's what's happening on AM 750 WSB.
Women in the military, animals in the laboratory. Hi, this is Wes Minner. What a hot show we have coming your way tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. My first guest is a female graduate from West Point, now an active member of the United States military. We'll talk about those women in the Persian Gulf. And also, I'll have a guy in here to tell us what's wrong with animal research in the laboratory. More stimulating talk radio for your afternoons. Now, more of Paul Gonzales on AM 750 WSB.
Talking about UFOs. And I just noticed a saucer just landed in the WSB parking lot, and a guy looked like David Paul just walked out of there. He's coming on a little later on this evening. It's 10:18. Our guest is Don Berliner of the Fund for UFO Research, and the Atlanta lines are now totally tied up. So if you're in Atlanta, just hang on a few minutes. And I know I told you we were going to tell you about what the government has provided to the fund as far as information through the Freedom of Information Act. We're going to tell you about that in a few minutes. And our guest is also putting together a book about the alleged crash of a UFO in Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. He's found some interesting things about that case, even after all these years, and we're going to get into that in a moment. But in the meantime, back to the phone calls. Cindy in Atlanta. And Cindy, you're on AM 750 WSB.
Yes. I wanted to ask what your guest thought about Jacques Vallée's books, Confrontations, about that he thought that the aliens or whatever and the UFOs, what they were gnomes and fairies, the same sightings that people have been seeing for years, and they've been around for years and years.
Are you familiar with that, Don?
Yeah, I know Vallée. His ideas are a bit different. I don't subscribe to them, but that isn't necessarily all that important. He's a good scientist. He's a well-trained man. Now, this whole idea is not exactly new. In fact, there is a man at Indiana University, Dr. Thomas Bullard, who did his doctoral dissertation on the possibility of a connection between UFOs and funny little creatures in folklore. And he was not impressed by any such connection. And so it's an interesting idea, pretty hard to support scientifically, and I'm not sure what it would mean. It's entirely possible, for instance, that what people are calling aliens now were seen hundreds of years ago and called fairies and gnomes and trolls and whatnot, and they may have been aliens then. Who knows?
It's an interesting theory because some people even believe that maybe even angels and some of the stuff talked about in the Bible might have been aliens.
Well, who knows? Unfortunately, it's a little late to be interviewing witnesses.
Yes, that's true. And speaking of witnesses, you have interviewed some eyewitness reports to this Roswell, New Mexico thing, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but let's go back to the calls and say hi to Mark in Snellville. And Mark, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, have you ever heard of that book, Communion?
Oh, sure.
Whitley Strieber, is that his name?
Yeah.
Is that book considered true, or has it been proven false? Or?
It's considered nonfiction. Of course, it's full of his own interpretation of what happened to him. And the problem, of course, is that Strieber is a very successful writer of horror fiction. And people have a tendency to assume that everything he writes is fiction. However, his experience was so similar to hundreds and hundreds of others that it fits in very well. And regardless of how he interprets it, his description of what apparently happened to him makes a lot of sense.
Well, you know, as a matter of fact, your organization sponsored the first scientific study on 9 people who were abducted or said they were, and you commissioned a PhD psychologist, and he concluded that there was no psychological weirdness in the stories of these people.
Yeah. The first thought when these stories started to become common was that these people had psychological problems. It's a very reasonable assumption, I think. And so we paid for a research by a PhD psychologist who conducted extensive tests of 9 so-called abductees to see if there were any common traits of psychological problems or anything that might explain these preposterous stories they were telling. And she concluded that there was absolutely no sign of this sort of thing. And she had not been told what it was that tied all these people together. It hadn't been told anything about the specific stories they were telling, only that we wanted her to look at these people and tell us what she found. And when she was told that they all were alleged alien abductees, she was flabbergasted. And she said, absolutely, there is no hint that these are psychological in origin.
So, Mark, even if that case isn't true about Whitley Strieber, there are some other cases that are very believable. And of those 9 cases that you guys studied, which was the most believable?
I don't have the details on the specific cases. I'm not familiar with them.
Next call is going to be Don in Canton, Georgia. Don, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, I heard the Don there mention the complex figurations in the wheat and cornfields in England. I noticed a similarity between those complex designs and the designs on the plains of the on the Nazca Plains in Peru.
Oh, the Nazca Desert in Peru. Yeah, that's interesting.
Has there been any association between the two?
Were there circles there?
No, but on one of the circles I saw, coming off the circle looked like a bird claw.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I saw the same claw in the photographs I have of the Nazca plains.
That's interesting. I hadn't realized that. I'll have to check that out. But by and large, these things are different from anything else that's been seen around the world.
By the way, that is an interesting story about the Nazca Desert in Peru. For those who don't know about it, there are all kinds of figures in that desert down there, and one of them is of a spider monkey. And you can only see this from the air. So many people believe that ancients carved those figures in that desert for people who could see them only from above in days when we didn't have airplanes. Next call will be Craig in Marietta. Craig, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Good evening. I recently read Howard Blum's Out There, and he kept trying to track down this UFO Working Group, and I wanted to know if you had any evidence to support that there's an existing group like that.
We have evidence that there was such a group. One of our people talked to two former members of it. It appears that it was a rather short-lived operation, apparently put together by people who did not have the need to know about the extremely classified work the government was doing, and there was really no way to stop them without spilling some of the beans. And so apparently this has happened more than once. This is not the first UFO working group that has popped up in the intelligence community.
Now what do we mean? A group of government officials working on UFOs?
Government intelligence types, military intelligence, that sort of thing, NSA. Or no, I think it was Defense Intelligence Agency, who saw some evidence of UFO activity from within the government and decided to find out what was going on. And they set up a working group, a committee, to look into this. And apparently it didn't last all that long, but what it looks like is that when they set it up, the few people who really knew what was going on inside the government couldn't do anything to stop them without spilling the beans about the super classified activity. And so it went on for a while. And apparently it ran out of gas to a significant extent because they got into a lot of paranormal stuff, which turned off a lot of the members.
Speaking of the government, in a few minutes, I hope you'll tell us about what you found from the Freedom of Information Act. Okay, Don?
Yeah.
And also, I want to give you the opportunity to give your address so people can get an idea of the different publications that you have available.
Okay, you want me to do that now?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do it?
Okay. We have some literature to send out to people. Now, we're not a membership organization. We don't have a newsletter or anything like that. But we do have a lot of scientifically oriented publications. So just drop us a line at the Fund for UFO Research, Post Office Box 277, Mount Rainier, and that's Rainier, Maryland 20712. And we'll get the material in the mail to you.
And once again, that is the Fund for UFO Research, Post Office Box 277, Mount Rainier, Maryland, and the zip code is 20712. And there are all kinds of publications that you can get from this organization, and they'll send you the information. We will repeat that information in the next few minutes. And notice that we finally have a line open in Atlanta. I asked you to hold off for just a few minutes because the lines were packed up. But if you want to get through in Atlanta, race to your phone before your line's gone and call 872-0750. And our 1-800 lines are all tied up. Those will be open again shortly. Our guest is Don Berlinger of the Fund for UFO Research. And this is AM-750 WSB.
AM-750 WSB, Atlanta's leader for up-to-the-minute traffic information. We cover the rush hours like nobody else can. Scott Slade and Joy Cashin fly in the WSB Skycopter and Skyplane. Our own reporters, our own machines. we don't have to share with 10 other stations. Add to that thousands of ground reporters with the Bell South Mobility Hotline, and you have triple the coverage.
To report a traffic problem, press *750. It's a free call for Bell South Mobility customers.
AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
And we'll be back with our guest in just a moment and more information about UFOs and some of the latest stuff that's been going on AM-750 WSB, Atlanta's leader for news, weather, and traffic. It's 10:30, and with a quick update, here's Bob Glasscock.
Good evening. Cuba has rejected a United States appeal for support of a UN resolution that would authorize the use of force to drive Iraq out of Kuwait. After a 90-minute meeting tonight in New York with Secretary of State James Baker, Cuba's foreign minister said the text of the resolution is not acceptable. It comes up for debate tomorrow. Senate Republican leader Bob Dole says it is time for Congress to get in on the game on U.S. policy in the Persian Gulf. He is predicting there will be a special session of Congress to consider the Gulf crisis before Christmas. Soviet Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze says the question to be decided at the UN tomorrow is whether we will build a new world order or live by the law of the jungle. Shevardnadze is in New York for tomorrow's Security Council session on Iraq. 2 Riverdale police officers say a videotape they made has done enough damage to the department's image that the best thing for them to do is leave. They turned in their badges this morning. The tape included racial slurs. And Atlanta's population may be growing, not shrinking, as reported by the Census Bureau. The conflicting numbers come out in a study by the Atlanta Regional Commission. AM-750 WSB, the only station with our own helicopter and airplane. Depend on Skycopter, Skyplane traffic. Now Atlanta's most accurate weather with WSB meteorologist Kirk Mellish.
The WSB exclusive 5-day forecast for tonight, cloudy, breezy, and cooler, lows near 49. Then for tomorrow, a morning shower possible, then partial clearing, windy, and much colder, high 54, low near 38. And the extended forecast Friday through Sunday, sunshine and cool, highs Friday 55, lows 34, high Sunday 62. I'm meteorologist Kirk Mellish in the AM-750 WSB Weather Center.
At 10:31, the temperature on Peachtree Street, 51 degrees. I'm Bob Glasscock, and if news breaks out, we'll break in. AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
This is your chance to sound off with Paul Gonzales from AM-750 WSB. To be a part of our show, call 872-0750. That's 872-0750. Now, here's Paul Gonzales.
And Don Berliner on the executive committee of the Fund for UFO Research in the Washington, D.C. area. And I know we got a lot of people to get to, and we're going to get to you very rapidly. Mark, you'll be first, and then Roger out in Texas, you'll be second. But I want to ask you about your research, Don, concerning that famous story about the UFO crashing in Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. That seems to be a pretty believable case, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's probably the most thoroughly investigated of all of the UFO cases and the best verified. More impressive witnesses than we've ever had on a single case. And it now looks like it was a mid-air collision because we have 2 crashes. We have many first-hand witnesses to various parts of it. We've just come up with another witness who was close to bodies. Looks like a total of 7 bodies involved in the 2 crashes.
7 aliens?
Yeah. But we've talked to people who handled the material, who loaded it, who guarded it, who flew it out, who flew from other air bases to New Mexico to pick it up, who were involved in the cover-up. See, initially the Army admitted that it had recovered a crashed flying saucer. And then a few hours later they changed that and said, oh no, it was nothing but the remains of a weather balloon.
Oh boy.
And we've talked to a colonel, he's a colonel at the time, he later became a general, who described getting the order from Washington to come up with a cover story.
I think that something actually got in some newspapers about it, right?
Oh, yeah. I can vaguely recall hearing it on the radio back then. It got tremendous coverage very briefly. And then the Air Force, the Army then clamped down on it and really has probably done the greatest job of secret keeping in the history of the world. They've done, it's now leaking out, no question about it, but after 40 years, but they did a superb job of covering this thing up.
Do you think that maybe in the next few years the government is going to admit that we have had an encounter with an extraterrestrial intelligence and say, hey, we lied, we were afraid that you wouldn't be able to accept the truth? I mean, you think that's close?
Can you imagine the government saying that? I can't. I think they're not going to say anything until they're under an awful lot of pressure, until it's easier to talk than keep quiet. And right now, by keeping absolutely silent, they're limiting their problems, their embarrassment. But if we can get enough of this out in public, maybe the newer people who weren't involved, of course, back in the 40s, will have a change of heart, but I'm not holding my breath.
Well, now, were you able to get any documents from the government with the Freedom of Information Act about this?
No. They insisted it was nothing but a weather balloon. Actually, the radar reflector from a weather balloon, and that's it. That was the beginning and end of the whole thing, and everything else is so tightly locked up that we can't get close to it.
Do you think there's any possibility that the ship and maybe even the frozen bodies of the aliens may still be around?
I certainly hope they haven't thrown them out. And if the craft is as well made as it apparently was, it's going to be hard to junk. I've talked to enough people who handled parts of it. Extremely light and extremely strong material. And it could be that the government is still trying to understand the technology involved, which could be one of the main reasons they're still keeping quiet about it.
Have you talked to anybody who saw the aliens?
Yeah.
What did they look like from the reports that you've received?
Very much like the reports that you get from abductees, and very much like the reports you get from people who have seen landed UFOs with their little crew members running around.
Kind of smallish looking people?
Small, very flimsy looking, skinny, oversized head, out of proportion head, huge eyes, no hair, next to no nose, mouth, or ears. Very much the same descriptions right down the line.
And from the reports, all 7 of them died in the crash?
From the reports we have, 6 of them did. And one of them was described as being quite alive and did not appear to be particularly injured.
So maybe they communicated with this little guy for a while.
Could be.
I've even heard it speculated that maybe the movie E.T. was based on some of that stuff.
Well, you want to speculate on something like that, the sky's the limit.
Oh, boy.
It's a great subject for just sitting around in the evening and shooting the breeze. As long as you realize you're just speculating.
But now you have about 100 credible witnesses.
Well over 100 now.
Including, reiterating, a United States colonel.
Including what?
A colonel.
Yeah, a number of ex-military officers.
Do these people get any heat from the government? Any heat, like, you better shut up, don't say anything, or you're gonna be in big trouble?
At the time, they were threatened with amazing statements. Not only themselves, but their families were threatened. But now, some of these people are quite willing to speak out. Others will talk to us off the record, and still others won't say a word. But some of them have spoken out. They don't seem to be concerned, and I'm not aware that anything has happened to anyone as a result. The thing is, if the government would do anything, they would be admitting these people were telling the truth.
That's right. And once these people have come out in the open and their names appear in your book that'll be coming out next year, then maybe something will happen.
Let's hope so. That's the purpose of the book.
We'll take a short break, and I know that I've made a lot of you all wait on the lines. Atlanta lines all tied up, as well as the 800 lines. We're going to race through some calls here right after this short break, but I wanted to make sure that you heard the information about the Roswell, New Mexico crashes, because as our guest said, the best investigated case to date. The number in Atlanta, 872-0750, but don't call now. Wait 5 minutes and then try again. The other exchange is 1-800-WSB-TALK. Our guest is Don Berliner of the Fund for UFO Research. We'll be giving you their address again in a few minutes, right here on AM-750 WSB.
Macy's sales managers have a sale just for you. It's their sale, the Sales Managers Day sale. Save 20 to 50% throughout the store on everything you want and need for you and your family. Save on men's and women's outerwear, sweaters, shoes, jewelry, plus savings on electronics, and big savings for your home in the cellar. Macy's Sales Managers Day sale starts tomorrow. Plus, it's the start of Macy's Winter White Sale.
You're such a part of my life.
A friend of mine who happens to be in insurance got me into jogging. Said it would keep me in shape, which was good for his bottom line. And it was while jogging that I started thinking about what I could do to shape up my career as well. That's when he told me about Atlanta Metropolitan College, referred to it as career insurance. He said his courses at AMC not only helped resolve some questions at work, but the bosses were so impressed with his initiative, his job was spared when layoffs were considered. So with all the talk about mergers and buyouts, it didn't take me long to decide to give AMC a call. And then it was time for me to be impressed. Besides a great selection of courses, AMC was affordable. I was able to choose classes that suited my schedule as well as my budget. So besides an improved heart rate, you could say jogging got me started on an upward career track.
To find out how Atlanta Metropolitan College can help you upgrade your skills and prepare you for a brighter future, call 756-4000 for an application. Deadline for registration is December 7th.
The Hendersons decided to leave the old neighborhood, so they called Mega Movers. This great big moving company could not seem to distinguish between a move across town and a move across country, so they called a somewhat smaller mover, Shake, Rattle, and Roll Incorporated, but found their possessions wouldn't fit into a 72 Pinto. So now what are they going to do? Enter 2 men and a truck. The local movers, who won't charge you an arm or a leg or break an arm or a leg of your furniture. Their names, 2 men and a truck. 2 men and a truck can take the stress out of a local move.
Alka-Seltzer, Pepto-Bismol?
They'll do the packing and the loading and the unloading and the driving.
That's me. No, you drove last time. No, I didn't. You did.
Whatever. 2 men and a truck gives you a sound, economical move. They've been doing it for a decade, and they're fully licensed and insured. And they take credit cards.
These are MasterCard.
Residential and commercial moves, all done safe, sound, and fast, and inexpensively. Call 477-MOVE for 2 men and a truck. That's 477-MOVE.
Sunday, Atlanta's Falcons fly south to Tampa Bay. Then make the Buccaneers walk the plank. Join us for the action. It kicks off at 11:05.
Remember, you'll enjoy the game more if you turn down the TV sound. Use that mute button and hear Larry Munson and Jeff Van Nost exclusively on AM-750 WSB.
AM-750 WSB, and a much sought-after guest is on the line with us right now, Don Berliner of the Fund for UFO Research. And what do you say we talk to some more of the folks at home, Don? Next one will be Roger in Omaha. And hello, Roger, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hello, Paul.
How are you?
I'd like to ask Don if ball lightning, what is known as ball lightning, has any thing to do with UFO activity.
I bet you a lot of people have seen ball lightning thinking it was a UFO.
Well, ball lightning's fairly rare, but it probably has a very small part, plays a very small part in the UFO picture. But ball lightning is small. It's vague, shimmering outline. It occurs only during electrical storms or times when the atmosphere is highly electrified. And it bounces around generally. It's not too well understood by scientists, but they do know what its characteristics are. And if you're a little bit patient, you'll realize that what you're seeing is something electrical and not something totally mysterious. It can't explain anything seen in clear weather, in good dry, in high in the sky, anything with a sharp outline, for instance. And so it could only possibly explain a very few UFO reports.
Well, if the Blue Book Committee would have had it, they would have maybe used that instead of swamp gas.
Well, they used it for a few cases and used it incorrectly, I think, like as they did with swamp gas.
They sure used a lot of swamp gas excuses, didn't they?
Oh, they used anything they could get hold of. They got pretty desperate at times.
Thank you for your call, Roger. And next one is David in Marietta, Georgia. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Don a question, could I?
Sure.
Don, this is kind of weird sounding. I have a lady that works for me. She contends that she took a trip in a UFO. She was out of it, so to speak, for about a day and a half, almost 2 days. In other words, unaccountable, so to speak. And every time she tells me the story of what the ship looked like inside, the people, how they were dressed, their complexion, what she did, how the whole thing is exactly the same every time. And she's not a young person, and she's very normal. How valid could something like that be?
Well, it would have to be investigated by someone with some experience. And I would think the thing to do would be to contact the Mutual UFO Network in Seguin, Texas, and they would put you in touch with their nearest field investigator.
Yeah, how do you spell Seguin, Texas?
Seguin. It's a suburb of San Antonio.
Okay, and that number you can get from information. I don't have it here handy, but just called information in Seguin, Texas.
Information in San Antonio.
In San Antonio, and the name of the organization is MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and I've called there before, you know me, and the number's listed in information. So why don't you have her get in touch with those folks?
Yeah, they're the experienced investigators.
And as we mentioned before, your group funded some study with 9 people who had these experiences, and the psychologists that you funded said these people were not crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would put a little bit of belief in what this woman's saying, David.
It's worth checking out.
I appreciate it. It's highly unusual. She doesn't.
High only around 55, lows tomorrow night 33 to 38, and the extended outlook Friday through Sunday, cool sunshine all 3 days, highs Friday 55, lows 34 to 38, highs Sunday in the low 60s. I'm meteorologist Kirk Mellish in the AM-750 WSB Weather Center.
Currently, WSB color radar does show some light scattered showers and one larger area of rain down toward LaGrange, scooting to the northeast at about 40 miles an hour, so the metro area may yet see more of it. At 11:06, the temperature on Peachtree Street, 51 degrees. More of Sound Off with Paul Gonzales is next. I'm Bob Glasgow, and if news breaks out, we'll break in. This is Atlanta's news, weather, and traffic station, AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
You're listening to AM-750 WSB and Sound Off. To be a part of our show, call 872-0750. That's 872-0750. Now, here's Paul Gonzales.
And my guest is Don Berliner, who is he's on the executive committee of the Fund for UFO Research in the Washington, D.C. area. And our next call is going to be Eddie in Mableton. Hello, Eddie. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Hi, Paul.
Hello.
I'll try to be real quick. I had 2 things I'd like to ask your guest there, if I may.
All righty.
The one thing, I've been reading a lot. There's a local bulletin board here in town called Illuminate. They carry a lot of paranormal information and stuff like that. And
computerized thing?
Pardon me?
A computer bulletin board?
Yeah. And in one of their sections on UFOs, they have an article that pretty much explains the connection between the government and the aliens. I know it sounds kind of wacko, but they say that since 1947 they've been working in conjunction with the government. The government has assisted them in building underground bunkers so they can, live. And throughout the U.S., these bunkers are. One supposedly is in the Four Corners area of Utah. Supposedly they developed and introduced religion to us, and supposedly they have a hologram of the crucifixion.
That's really weird. I'm going to have
yeah.
I'm going to have those people on the show.
I hear you. The other thing was, I wondered if your guest had ever was familiar with the writings of William Cooper, Robert Lazar, or John Lear.
Oh yeah. And your two questions are very closely connected, because this is the kind of material that Cooper in particular is putting out. And I'm aware of zero support, verification, anything like that. Nothing that these guys have said has checked out. And obviously a lot of it is all but impossible to check out. But without some support, some verification, I don't see how you can accept or even take these things seriously. I frankly would put Cooper in particular in the flaky category. And he has a small group of dedicated followers, but I think generally speaking, people in the UFO field don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. These claims could be true, but how do you find out? And you can't just take somebody's word on something this radical, this spectacular. And until we hear something to support these claims, we have to consider them baseless, I'm afraid.
Are you familiar with that book, Don, called The Gods of Eden?
No.
Now, that's an interesting book about the history of UFOs, and there are some speculations in that book that maybe UFOs and extraterrestrials may have had some hand in history. The author doesn't say it's true. All he does is just bring you some various opinions. You might want to pick up that book. It's called The Gods of Eden, and the author is Bramley, B-R-A-M-L-E-Y. If you like that kind of stuff, like what you were talking about, you probably enjoy Bramley's book. It talks about different carvings and art that looks like UFOs, and it's interesting stuff to read. Next one will be Mark in Roswell. Mark, you're on AM-750 WSB. Good evening.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the crash in Roswell about the seven aliens and one that survived. Was supposedly called O.H. Krill, and the reason that it had virtually no mouth was supposedly they had advanced so much that they could speak through thoughts, and the government had kept him, and he had been hurt in the crash, and a couple of years later he did die, and they burned all the material on him.
And what's your source of this information?
A book. I don't have the name on the top of my head, but I had read it in a book.
You're calling from New Mexico?
No, we have a Roswell, Georgia, too.
Oh, okay.
But, of course, that's just speculation, Mark, because nobody knows any of that kind of stuff for sure. And believe me, if anybody would, Don would.
I would love to.
Yes. Thank you for your interest, young man. Next caller is Steve in Conyers. And, Steve, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hey, Paul.
Hello.
I want to tell a little story about something I saw on the interstate about 10 years ago. I've always wanted to see a UFO, I guess, but
I think we all want to see one.
And that night, it was evening, just as dusk was falling, I guess, and because the first star was visible out in front of us as we were driving down the road, and it was really big and bright, and that's kind of what got my attention. And we kept looking at it as we were going down the road, and we had to stop and go pull into Mentor, Georgia, I think is a little city, and get some gas, and everybody was out there.
That's Mentor, Georgia?
Yeah, it was down south of Atlanta.
That's a little town named after our very own West Mentor.
Right.
West Mentor, Georgia, yeah.
And so we were at the gas station, and everybody was out looking and talking about Resurrection Day, looking at this star. And so well, we filled up with gas and went back to the interstate, and cars had stopped all up and down the road, and there was police cars stopped, and we pulled off down the ramp and stopped and just sat there, and there was a farm family that walked out to the fence and was looking, and we watched this thing for as it finally got dark. It was dark, and all the other stars were out too, and it was just sitting there, and all of a sudden a little light kind of came away from the big one and started trailing down, and it took I'd say about 2 or 3 minutes for it to get beyond the horizon, and you could kind of see like it looked almost like a vapor trail, and then the big one just shot up into space and disappeared in an instant. And I was going, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and so we were turning the radio, trying to see if, I figured it was going to be all over the radio. Never heard a word, never saw anything in the newspaper, but lots of people saw it.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories like that. And until you got to the part where it shot up, I was convinced it was just something astronomical. But that certainly takes it out of that category and more than likely makes it a UFO. But the lack of press coverage of this sort of thing is a major reason why we don't get more sighting reports.
Yeah, and I can understand, too, being in the media, Don and Steve. Can you imagine turning on your TV and saying, "Good evening, this is Dan Rather with the Evening News." And our lead story tonight is there was a UFO sighted in Minner, Georgia. And, I mean, you just are not going to see that.
Well, it's the same old thing. It really isn't news unless something different happens. Such as crop circles, such as abductions, such as crashes. Otherwise, it's old hat.
Hey, thank you for your call, Steve.
Thanks.
All righty, next one will be Glen in Canton, Georgia. And Glen, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Fine.
I'm a middle grade science teacher, and I wanted to ask your guest a question. If we were to take a vehicle and attach some kind of engine to it that would propel it fast enough so that it would approach the speed of light, there are all kinds of particles in space, atoms and molecules and pieces of dust, that would puncture that ship, and whatever would be inside would die of explosive decompression. Could you possibly offer any answer about that? I'm kind of skeptical about it.
And I encourage skepticism, and I know you do too,
sure,
Don.
Sure, it's healthy. First off, all I would know anything about is techniques that we might use, either actual or theoretical. If you make the hull of a spacecraft strong enough and therefore heavy enough, you can protect it against all but fairly large objects out there. Of course, weight poses its own problems, but as far as what UFOs may do to protect their insides from intrusion, who knows? The people I've talked to who say they handled wreckage from one of the New Mexico crashes describe it as being extremely light and extremely strong. And so I suspect this material, which was structural to some extent, would provide pretty fair protection. Not perfect. There may not be perfect protection, but pretty good protection.
And there's also some theories, and again, these are just theories about different ways of space travel, including travel through time.
Oh, now you're really getting into wild ideas.
Yeah.
And fascinating stuff to toss around, but nobody really knows anything about it.
Sure would be nice to know, wouldn't it?
Oh, I've got a number of trips I'd like to make.
Hey, I appreciate your call very much, Glenn.
Thank you, Paul.
And we'll take a short break, and then we'll race through some more telephone calls here. The number in Atlanta is 872-0750, and outside of the area, it's 1-800-WSB-TALK. Our guest is Don Berliner, and he is with the Fund for UFO Research. Now, make sure you have your pencil and paper ready, because there's a good possibility if you're interested in this subject, you're going to want to get some of the printed materials that are available from this organization. Now, this is a non-profit organization. It's not out to make any money, and the prices for the various materials are very reasonable. So if you're interested in finding out more about this subject, we have a tremendous bibliography for you to take a look at. Right now it's 11:17, and this is Sound Off with Paul Gonzales on AM-750 WSB.
Here's what's happening this week on AM-750 WSB. Join us for the Festival of Trees coming December 1st through the 9th. This year, we'll be at the Georgia World Congress Center, and it's bigger and better than ever. All proceeds benefit Eggleston Children's Hospital. It's a perfect way to get into the holiday spirit. Keep listening for more details. I'm Wes Minner. Hope to see you there.
Listen to Atlanta's Morning Show and the Gary McKee Hometown Radio Show for your chance to win tickets to see the Kuppenheimer Classic Basketball Doubleheader, featuring Georgia against Texas and Georgia Tech against Loyola Marymount, benefiting Scottish Rite Children's Medical Center December the 22nd at the Omni. And you'll also be eligible to win a trip for two to the NCAA Final Four in Indianapolis, including airfare from Delta Airlines, accommodations, and game tickets. But you gotta listen to win. I'm Bobby Harper, and that's what's happening on AM-750 WSB.
Now he drops back. He steps up in the pocket, and he's going to throw to a man running down the middle. Long touchdown! Touchdown!
Stand up with your hometown team. Stand up with the new back-in-black high-flying Atlanta Falcons. A word of caution, however, don't plan on sitting down. In the Falcons' backyard each Sunday, you'll see NFL action at its best. You can count on being out of your seat, cheering and enjoying Falcons football.
So they punt, and we rush it. And we got it! It's blocked! It's rolling! We pick it up! We're going to run and score! Touchdown!
Don't be left out of all this fun and madness. Join the Falcons in their stand against some of the best in the NFL. Because the Falcons' backyard will be full for many games, you should order your tickets today. Come on, Atlanta, let's stand up together while tickets are still available for the Phoenix Cardinals, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Dallas Cowboys. Call now, 249-6400, or stop by one of the convenient Ticketmaster Center locations.
There's a special kind of energy that comes from deep inside. When the work you do helps others live a better life.
Dave Robertson and the Morningside Lennox Neighborhood Association are serving our environment with their special kind of energy with a parks restoration program. An employee of Meade Corporation, Dave took the initiative to obtain a grant from his employer to purchase plant materials for neighborhood parks. The Neighborhood Association then volunteered their time to clean and restore parks and plant trees, shrubs, and perennials. Dave Robertson and the members of the Morningside Lennox Neighborhood Association, Georgia Power salutes you for serving our environment with your energy. If you know someone who is serving the environment with their energy, write to us in care of Georgia Power Salutes at AM-750 WSB.
Serving you with energy on the power of our pride.
Deep blue sapphires, rich red rubies, elegant green emeralds.
Brilliant diamonds and a tremendous collection of much, much more at the Golden Diamond Source. This week, take advantage of the huge savings on quality colored gemstones and diamonds at the Golden Diamond Source. I'm Steve Weintraub, president of the Golden Diamond Source, and I have brought in from around the world the finest collection of colored gemstones and diamonds that you will see anywhere before Christmas.
A birthstone ring, a colored gemstone bracelet, the perfect Christmas gift.
And you will have thousands to choose from, and you can buy with confidence because only the Golden Diamond Source guarantees the finest quality at the lowest price or your money refunded, period.
Buy from the source.
So stop in the Golden Diamond Source this week and take advantage of the huge savings on quality colored gemstones and diamonds. This Christmas, buy from the jeweler you have grown to trust. The Golden Diamond Source, your original diamond broker.
On Roswell Road at the corner of Hammond Drive. And next to Cub Foods on Jimmy Carter Boulevard, just east of I-85. Women in the military, animals in the laboratory. Hi, this is Wes Minner. What a hot show we have coming your way tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. My first guest is a female graduate from West Point, now an active member of the United States military. We'll talk about those women in the Persian Gulf. And also, I'll have a guy in here to tell us what's wrong with animal research in the laboratory. More stimulating talk radio for your afternoons. Now, more of Paul Gonzales on AM 750 WSB.
Well, that Wes, I don't know. I heard him talking today about gay people getting married. Maybe he's off of that conservative politics stuff. I don't know. It's 11:22. AM-750 WSB's exclusive Weather Center forecast calls for decreasing cloudiness tomorrow, and it's going to be windy and colder, high temperature 56. And tomorrow night we'll have freezing conditions, maybe around 30 degrees. Right now 51 on Peachtree Street. And our guest is Don Berliner, who is with the Fund for UFO Research. And our next caller is going to be Russell in New Orleans, the Crescent City. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask your guest there if you ever heard anything about the Men in Black.
You mean Johnny Cash?
No. In other words, when you had like one of them, like a third encounter or something like that, where they come and visit the people.
I don't know what in the devil you're talking about. Do you, Don?
Well, they said they had something like the government following up on things like that. In other words, so they would shut the witnesses up, like,
Yeah, but it hasn't been very effective. The stories are that some UFO witnesses have been visited by rather peculiar-looking men dressed all in black who try to intimidate them. Frankly, I don't think it's ever happened. I don't know what the basis of it is, but so many UFO witnesses have not been approached by these so-called three men in black, and that goes also for the most active UFO investigators who've never encountered anything like this. So just what it is, what's down at the source of it, I don't know, but the stories persist. They've been around for many, many years, that these three men in black show up where there's UFO activity and frighten people.
Are these men in black supposed to be from the government?
I suppose so, but they seem to be very unusual, and I haven't looked into it, and frankly, we would entertain a proposal to do a serious investigation of this to try to settle it once and for all.
You know what it probably is in our society, the color black really isn't a color, but black denotes evil and white denotes good, and that's probably where that came from,
Well, I don't know, but these stories have been around for a long time, and it would be good to do some proper investigation and try to clear it up. And so maybe if somebody out there would like to look into it, they could contact us and maybe we can work something out.
Thank you for your call, Russell. Scott on a car phone. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
Fine. It'll have to be one quick question because our guest has got to go. Okay. But those of you on the lines, I want to hear what you have to say, especially if you have some UFO stories. Go ahead there, Scott.
I wanted to ask your guest, I'm real fascinated by this topic. I read a book not too long ago about UFOs, and it said that there had been over 2,000 UFO sightings, and that they were only able to give a reasonable explanation for about 20% of those. And I was just wanting to ask your guest if he knows anything about this, if this is true, and if so, then why is it that we never read anything about this?
Okay, I've got 1 minute left here, Don.
Okay. I don't know where the statistics came from, but there are probably 100,000 UFO reports on record, either with the government or with private UFO agencies. And generally speaking, people estimate that about 90% can be explained, leaving about 10% that are really puzzling. And so why we don't hear more about them, I don't know. The major media, the big newspapers, the networks, etc., seem to be so entertainment-oriented today that when we do hear about UFOs, it's tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. Hey, Don, it's been great having you here. I'm going to give you your address after the news. I know you have to go. You stayed much later than you'd planned, and I hope that you will join us again because you've been a terrific guest.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed this very, very much.
And you have a pleasant evening, and hope you keep warm up there in D.C.
Okay, thanks a lot, Paul.
Take care.
Good night.
Those of you who want the address, I'm going to give it to you in a few minutes. And those of you who want to tell me about your opinions about UFOs, stay on the line, or if you're not on the line, call me now.
Your best source for breaking news. AM-750 WSB, Atlanta's news, weather, and traffic station. Depend on it.
Now a word from Drug Emporium and Fiberall.
I didn't want to go. I just wasn't up to it. It's not that I didn't want to meet my future son-in-law, but I wanted to make a good impression, and I wasn't myself that day because of, well, constipation. My daughter and her fiancé were only in town a few days, and I couldn't very well cancel, so I asked for a friend's advice. She told me when she has the same problem, she takes a fiber product. She takes Fiberall. She says it really works. She used to take original Metamucil, but then she found out it's almost half sugar, and sugar does nothing to relieve constipation. It's the fiber that does all the work. I guess that's why Fiberall has no sugar. Instead of sugar, Fiberall adds bran, another healthy fiber. So I've made Fiberall part of my daily routine. Fiberall keeps me regular, and meeting my future son-in-law went just fine. Until I brought up grandchildren. Do you think it was too soon?
Fiberall, available at Drug Emporium.
'Tis the season for Christmas carols and holiday hymns, and no one captures the Yuletide spirit better than the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and Chorus. Spin Christmas with Robert Shaw, December 5th through the 8th, featuring the orchestra and 300 choral voices in joyous holiday favorites from Deck the Halls to Adeste Fidelis. The celebration continues December 13th through the 15th with the sounds of heralding angels as Robert Shaw conducts the Christmas portion of Handel's Messiah, a holiday classic. And on December 15th and 16th, watch your children shout with glee during Kids Christmas, featuring a carol sing-along and a special visit from Santa Claus. Tickets for the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra's holiday concerts in Symphony Hall are on sale now. Stop by the Woodruff Heart Center box office or call 892-2414. That's 892-2414. These concerts sponsored by the Livingston Foundation and Contel.
It's the Garrow McKee Hometown Radio Show. Something for the whole family. And you hear it every afternoon between 4 and 7 on AM-750 WSB, Atlanta's leader for news, weather, and traffic. It's 11:30, and with a quick update, here's Bob Glasscock.
Good evening. Cuba says it will vote against a United Nations resolution that would clear the way for use of force against Iraq's occupation of Kuwait. U.S. Secretary of State James Baker met with Cuban diplomats tonight, trying to win them to the American position. But after the session, the Cuban foreign minister called the wording of the resolution unacceptable. Baker also met this evening with Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze. Baker says Shevardnadze will meet with President Bush next month for pre-summit talks. No arrest yet in the rash of arson fires in southwest Atlanta last night, but investigators say they think they know who did it. They know who they're looking for. A witness gave them a description of a person seen at one of the 5 fires that were set in about an hour. 2 Riverdale police officers turn in their badges. They tell the chief they've done too much harm by a videotape of a mock briefing. It contained racial slurs. The cops say it was intended as a spoof, but it has brought criticism and even threats. AM-750 WSB, the only station with our own helicopter and airplane. Depend on Skycopter, Skyplane traffic. And now Atlanta's most accurate weather with AM-750 WSB meteorologist Kirk Mellish.
The WSB exclusive 5-day forecast for tonight: cloudy, breezy, and cooler, lows near 49. Then for tomorrow, a morning shower possible, then partial clearing, windy, and much colder, high 54, low near 38. And the extended forecast Friday through Sunday: sunshine and cool, highs Friday 55, lows 34, high Sunday 62. I'm meteorologist Kirk Mellish in the AM-750 WSB Weather Center.
At 11:32, the temperature on Peachtree Street, 51 degrees. I'm Bob Glasscock, and if news breaks out, we'll break in. AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
This is your chance to sound off with Paul Gonzales from AM-750 WSB. To be a part of our show, call 872-0750. That's 872-0750. Now, here's Paul Gonzales.
You know, what really impressed me about my guest is that he was very rational about what he had to say. There are a lot of people who talk about UFOs who seem to be making up the information as they go along. But our guest is very credible, and so is his organization. Do you think the government is covering up UFO information? I have heard more opinion from a lot of credible people about that 1947 incident, the supposed crash of 2 UFOs and 7 aliens. Maybe there is something to that story, or do you think maybe it's just legendary, just rumor? Number in Atlanta is 872-0750, outside of the area 1-800-WSB-TALK. Got a bunch of people still on the lines, but I want to make you aware that it's open calling also. If there's something else you want to talk about, I want to give you a little time to choose what you want to discuss. Anna in Indiana, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hello there, how are you?
Fine, Anna.
You have a good voice, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I was going to talk about UFOs. I wanted to ask the gentleman that you had on a question, but since he's gone, I'll tell you my experience.
All right.
I had left our home one evening. It was around Christmas time. And I left our home to go get some drinks, soft drinks, non-alcoholic beverages.
He wanted to tell me that so I'd know you weren't drinking Jack Daniels and
That's
saw
right.
something that you didn't see, right?
That's right. And anyhow, I thought I was only gone, well, I don't want to get too deep into the story, but there was this bright light. And we live out in the country. In fact, I told the guy that took my car, it wasn't on the map where I live. But anyhow, this bright light followed my car. And it followed me to this country store. And they had the Coke machines out front. And anyhow, it disappeared. Then when I got back out on the highway, it started following me again. Well, when I finally did get home, my husband was ready to come unglued. He was getting ready to get the police to go look for me. And so I talked to a doctor at the University of Louisville, and I had something called TLA. And I didn't know it's called time-lapse abduction.
Hmm.
And I didn't know if that was of the mind or if it was an actual abduction. That was my question to the man that you had on the show.
Well, he mentioned a little earlier that his organization funded a research project with 9 people who had the same kind of experiences that it sounds like you had, and they checked them out and said that these people were absolutely sane and absolutely rational people. This so-called time-lapse abduction thing is very common.
Well, there was a man a while ago who said something that the guys in the black suits, I thought the guys in the white jackets were coming after me for a while because I swore up and down I was only gone for 15 minutes, but I was gone a long time.
Did you ever go see a psychologist about this?
Yes.
And did they tell you that you probably really was abducted by a UFO?
This is what the doctor at the University of Louisville told me, and he called it TLA, but I never did get if it was the mind, if you stopped your car, and if it was the mind that they had through chain of thought, or if it was of the body, because I do not recall.
Nobody really, I don't think, knows, but sometimes through hypnosis people can remember what happened. Did you ever...
No, I have not undergone hypnosis.
You don't know what happened. All you remember is the lights, and then that's it.
That's it. And when I came, the only thing I do recall before I left, that the cows were acting real strange, and the dogs were barking. And instead of them barking in any particular direction, they were barking towards the sky.
Wow.
And
well, I interviewed one lady several years ago on a TV show, and she looked me right in the eye and looked very believable, and she said she was abducted like it sounds like you were, and she ended up pregnant.
Oh, my God.
They did something to her up there in that spaceship.
Well, I can't recall anything other than I knew what time I left. I did know that.
Well, it sounds like a lot of stories that I've heard. As a matter of fact, there's a book out which you might want to get. I think it's in paperback for just a few bucks. It's called Communion by Whitley Strieber. Have you ever heard of that book?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Have you read it?
No.
Well, you ought to go pick it up because it's like it's under $10, and you might want to read that because it sounds like this guy Strieber had the same thing happen to him as what could have happened to you. I'd check it out. Do you have a VCR?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's also available on videotape. If I were you, I'd go watch it. At least it'll make you feel like you're not crazy.
Well, I don't feel like I'm crazy anymore, but I did for a while.
Well, that's why it's good that these UFO shows are on the radio, because a lot of people have had these weird things happen to them, and they think they're just plain crazy. And then they find out that other people have had these experiences. And who knows, maybe it was a hallucination or maybe something really did happen. But I do appreciate your call, and I hope you call me again.
Okay, thanks so much.
Take care.
Mm-hmm, bye.
Next one is Sammy in Dekalb County. You're on AM-750 WSB.
How you doing, Paul?
Okay.
I've followed UFOs for the last 25 years in the literature, and I'm basically a skeptic. I've followed them because it's something that I really wish was true.
I think you're in the same category as I am.
I have a couple of problems.
Okay, let's hear them.
One is these creatures always look humanoid, and when you think about if these creatures came from some other place, some other planet outside of our solar system, possibly, I mean, the chance of their size and shape and form, and even their visibility being anything close to ours, would be remote, to say the least.
You know, I used to think that until I got a tape of a symposium that they had at Boston University about 10 years ago, and they had a couple of scientists on there, and they even had the late anthropologist Ashley Montague, biochemists, people like that. And it was their scholarly point of view that any kind of life as we know it would be carbon-based. And they've actually found enzymes in meteorites that have been found here on the Earth, enzymes very similar to the ones that we have. And there's probably a great possibility that any kind of life that would be intelligent and would visit here would be carbon-based and would be somewhat similar to the way we look.
But carbon-based would mean that they would be humanoid and with two legs and a head sitting on top, that sort of thing. Let me relate a story to you, something that happened to me.
Real quick now, okay?
Okay, very quick. I was in the military. I was on guard duty in New Jersey. This was some 25 years ago. I was out in a big open field, and all of a sudden, about 3 o'clock in the morning, this light came down on the field. I mean, it just seemed to cover the whole field, and it really frightened me. I ran away. As I ran off of the field, the light receded. And every time I came back on the field, the light came down, and when I left, it receded. But you know, as the morning went on, and I played this game for several hours, I realized what the light was. It was the planet Venus. But there was something about that field and the refraction of the light that made it appear that it was actually coming down into the field. But of course, it was planet Venus, and it never moved.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of planets, there are going to be a lot of people after listening to tonight's show who are going to be looking outside going, ooh, I wonder if there's a UFO. The planet Mars is closest to the Earth right now. It hadn't been as close in 20 years. And if you look in the northeast sky, I don't know what position it's in now. Maybe it's straight up now. But if you look in the northeast sky, I guess sometime a little after dark, that planet Mars looks so close, it looks like a UFO. And your mind can play tricks on you.
I think Venus is really one of the planets that does it a lot to people.
Yeah, Venus is very bright. That's why they call it the evening star, and then at other times,
the morning star.
And the morning star, which is also Venus. But Sammy, I do appreciate your call. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Next one will be, I guess, Don, and then Ed, and then James, and then Dorothy. And we'll be right back. We're talking about UFOs, unidentified flying objects. All kinds of stuff has been in the news here of late concerning those strange circles in the wheat fields throughout the world. And many people think, hey, I wonder if those guys from outer space are coming to visit us again. We'll be talking about your experiences and your opinions and your skepticism in a moment, right here on AM 750 WSB.
jewelry store can have a sale, but only J.B. Robinson Jewelers can save you up to 67% with an incredible red tag sale. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save up to 67% off specially marked merchandise at J.B. Robinson Jewelers. That's right, now you can buy gorgeous diamond and gold jewelry for just 1/3 of its original price. So don't miss the incredible red tag sale at J.B. Robinson Jewelers.
Visit J.B. Robinson Jewelers in Perimeter Mall, Town Center, Cobb, and Cumberland Mall.
Do you hate to shop for a new car because you're not ready to be subjected to the tactics of a high-pressure salesman? Or do you long for a way to avoid this type of hyped-up selling? Well, you can, you know. Just see the quietest dealer in town, Stone Mountain Jeep Eagle. You won't find fast-talking, high-pressure pitchmen at Stone Mountain Jeep Eagle. Well, of course they want to sell you a Jeep Wrangler, Cherokee, Grand Wagoneer, or Comanche pickup. You know, there's only one Jeep. The rest are imitations. At Stone Mountain Jeep Eagle, we respect your intelligence, so we don't hassle you with gimmicks or tricky numbers. At Stone Mountain Jeep Eagle, it's not so much us selling you a Jeep as you buying a Jeep. Stone Mountain Jeep Eagle. People know how well we treat our customers and how low we keep our prices. You know, we could shout about it, but we like to do things in a quiet way. Stone Mountain Jeep Eagle, 5554 Memorial Drive in Stone Mountain, where every customer is treated equally at the quietest dealer in town.
Saturday, it's one of college football's hottest rivalries. Georgia hosts Georgia Tech in the season finale. AM-750 WSB's coverage kicks off Saturday morning at 10:30 with the tailgate show. Pre-game is at 12:30, and at 1 p.m., it's Georgia and Tech from AM-750 WSB.
AM-750 WSB, we're talking about unidentified flying objects, and of course, radio talk shows have been discussing this issue for years and years, but lately you've noticed a lot of news about some strange formations and crops in 30 countries now. First ones were in England, and now we're hearing about some in Japan. Strange, circular, flattened areas and wheat fields with no apparent man-made connection. Very strange, huh? Ed's next in Smyrna. Ed, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hi.
How are you, Ed?
Pretty good. I was just, listening to everybody talking and stuff, and it's kind of thinking, everybody's asking the question, if we're being visited by UFOs, how come almost all of the, biological sightings look like us? Like, if this was an intelligent race, maybe even more than one of them, wouldn't they probably send the ones that did kind of look like the humans did?
Well, that's true.
Yeah. I was also wondering if I could get that address again.
Oh, yeah, I promised I'd give it, and by gummy, I forgot to. It's Fund for UFO Research.
Mm-hmm.
You writing it down?
I'm taping it.
Post Office Box 277, Mount Rainier, that's R-A-I-N-I-E-R, Mount Rainier, Maryland. Zip code is 20712.
Mm-hmm.
20712 for the rest of the folks who are not taping it and want to write it down. The guy sounded pretty credible, didn't he?
Yeah.
There are a lot of nuts who talk about this subject, I admit, and they're entertaining, but this guy's not going to tell you anything unless he has some facts to base what he says on it,
Yeah. And that's, some of the books that I've read about this stuff is, where did they get this stuff? They probably just made it up or whatever, and it's annoying when people do that. They just kind of get real extravagant or something just to be, just to make some money or get something on TV or whatever. And
and maybe some money from the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
I remember back in the 50s, there was this strange story about supposedly this fella who owned some kind of a junk shop in Brooksville, Florida, had a live alien, and he was charging people like $1 to come in and see this alien, and I mean, there were cars just packed around this place, and finally some guy paid his $1 to go in and see this strange-looking humanoid type of thing, and it did look weird, it looked kind of human and kind of alien, and he said, "Hey, man, I know what you got there. That is a monkey with the hair shaved off. Guy had shaved off all the hair off a monkey, and it did. You imagine how weird that would look?
Yeah.
And the fella made quite some money out of it, and the National Enquirer ran a story about it, and even some regular newspapers did, and it was just a pure scam.
Yeah, it's kind of like what, the Ringling Brothers people did for a unicorn. They took a goat and cut off one of its horns and put the other one in the middle, It's annoying.
Thank you for your call. I'm glad you were interested in the show.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll go back to the lines here in a moment. Dorothy will be our next one. How do you feel about this whole UFO phenomenon? Is it just something that we want to believe? And we've been watching so many science fiction movies. I don't know how many times I've seen the Star Trek feature-length films. Do we just want to believe in something like this? Or do you think that we've actually been visited by UFOs? The number in Atlanta is 872-0750, and outside of the area, 1-800-WSB-TALK. Especially want to hear from some skeptics tonight. You think this stuff is pure baloney, and that if indeed someone from another planet and another part of the universe wanted to see us, they'd say hello. They would leave something behind. Something would fall off one of their spacecrafts, and we would have some evidence. And maybe some of you believe that this story about Roswell, New Mexico, 1947, is just rumor and just legend, just like maybe the Loch Ness Monster. 872-0750 in Atlanta, outside of the area, 1-800-WSB-TALK. Dorothy in Fayetteville, I know you've been waiting a long time. I'm going to get to you in a flash. Our AM-750 WSB exclusive weather center forecast from our own meteorologist, Kirk Mellish. We have a slight chance of UFO activity. Otherwise, areas of rain and possibly a thunder shower. Low temperature 49. Tomorrow, decreasing clouds, windy, colder. High 56, low 30. Hey, Friday will be mostly sunny and a high of 57. Right now, we have 51 degrees on Peachtree. And this is AM-750 WSB.
Hey, when was the last time you could say,
I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't die.
That's the reason thousands of fans say they return again and again to the smash hit American Jukebox, live on stage at the Buckhead Roxy. They know that it's 2 hours of non-stop solid gold rock and roll hits from the 50s and the 60s with the songs, the dances, and the music that'll have you rocking in your seats and dancing in the aisle. So put some fun back into your evening. Treat your day to the best night in the town, or pack up the kids for the time of their lives. American Jukebox is just a ticket to send your spirit soaring into doo-wop and delirium. And you'll have just one thing to say.
I feel good.
American Jukebox has been held over through New Year's Eve, so plan for the holidays now. It's your call. 873-4300 or visit Ticketron at all major Kroger stores. American Jukebox, 873-4300.
I feel good.
Scott Seekers, Ludlow Porch. I've been telling you for a long time about my friends at Brown and Company Jewelers and about the fact that if you want a good diamond at a right price, that's the place to go. But there's never, ever been a better time for you to shop at Brown and Company Jewelers for a diamond than right now, because if you buy now before the government starts the 10% luxury tax, you can put that money in your pocket, and that starts January the 1st. Also, right now, diamonds in all sizes from 1 carat to 7 carats, all cuts, round, brilliant, marquee, pear, oval, emerald, radiant, all on sale right now. Brown and Company Jewelers. Stop by and see them. 674 Holcomb Bridge Road, right there in historic Roswell, and you're never going to beat the deals that you're going to get at Brown and Company Jewelers. You go by today and you tell them Ludlow Port sent you to Brown and Company.
The world's most desirable automobiles, Mercedes-Benz, are now for the first time offered in a year-end sales program to clear over 100 automobiles at RBM of Atlanta. Save now with demonstrator models, special price adjustments, extended terms, low-cost leases. Save the upcoming tax increases. Buy or lease now before January 1st. Special RBM leasing programs may cost you less per month than buying or leasing an ordinary luxury car. Acquiring a Mercedes-Benz on the basis of mere price would be unthinkable. Yet now, RBM offers these coveted automobiles in a program that is virtually irresistible. This program ends January 1st and is available only at RBM of Atlanta, where our tireless commitment to Mercedes-Benz owner care offers a degree of service and support unparalleled in the industry. RBM of Atlanta, the South's largest authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer, 7640 Roswell Road, North Sandy Springs.
Women in the military, animals in the laboratory. Hi, this is Wes Minner. What a hot show we have coming your way tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. My first guest is a female graduate from West Point, now an active member of the United States military. We'll talk about those women in the Persian Gulf. And also, I'll have a guy in here to tell us what's wrong with animal research in the laboratory. More stimulating talk radio for your afternoons. Now, more of Paul Gonzales on AM-750 WSB.
Oh, it's amazing that coincidence.